A rare week 0 opener as ACC play begins. North Carolina State on the road to take on the Virginia Cavaliers, who's coming off a remarkable 11-win season, one of the greatest seasons in Cavalier history. What does CJ Bailey, one of the top quarterbacks in the conference, have to say going up against a surprise Tony Elliott team this past year? And was last year's Virginia team a fluke? Or can Tony Elliott and company replicate the same success? Or maybe not replicate, but stay consistent to keep them in Charlotte, Virginia. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucas Hill, here of the Southern Sports Scene. Make sure you all do us a favor. Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe down below, guys. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, posting a video or posting a short here on the Southern Sports Scene. Every live show brought to you by our good friends over at FrostBuddy. Going over to frostbuddy.com. Use that promo code SSS15 to get 15% off your first purchase. That is code SSS15 to get 15% off of your first purchase. We also want to thank our friends at Chike Nutrition. 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, 1 gram of sugar in every healthy, hearty cup of Chike Nutrition product. Click the link below to get 10% off and get every day started with a healthy, hearty cup of coffee. And as always, guys, thank you to our friends at Buzzer. We always stream our live shows and our videos over at the Buzzer Network. Download the Buzzer app today to get started today. All right. Big one out there in Scott Stadium out at Charlottesville, Virginia. North Carolina State. Big season ahead for them. Guys, I think CJ Bailey is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC when it is all said and done. I like what he has done overall as a quarterback. Kurt Roper begins his second full year as the OC. He's done a really phenomenal job. Was a quarterback's coach for a couple of years. He's been part of this Dave Doran off system for quite some time. I mean, you know so much about what NC State has been able to do the last several years. And it seems like every other year, NC State has never really had a solid – they've always been consistent, to say the least. And I really do believe that this is a Wolfpack team that I think they have no issues whatsoever with how this tenure has been for Dave Doran. They're fine with 7-6, 8-5, 9-4 seasons. I think we found their ceiling, them being a 9-win team, borderline a 10-win program. And the ceiling and the floor is obviously a 6-6, maybe a 7-5 season. But I think NC State is ready to kind of break that. But with this game being at Virginia, it is obviously going to be a daunting task for them. But this is an NC State team that obviously could be 4-0 by the time they get Louisville out at Carter Finley. Is it going to happen? Who knows? But I think this year, NC State's ceiling is going to be so much higher than we can really imagine. Okay? The reason why I say that is because you look at the talent that this team brings back. You look at what they've done the last several years, slowly building up. I think this NC State team can finally break through and get a 10-win season at the end of the day. I know that it's going to be difficult when you go to First Bank Stadium and play Vanderbilt. It's a young Vanderbilt team that has a lot of new starters at the end of the day. But you can never count out Clark Lea and a young squad with the best high school quarterback that came out this past season in Jared Curtis. We'll see what happens in that department. Then they get Louisville, obviously, at home. They get Cal at home. They get Syracuse, Duke at home, Wake Forest at home. So three of the 4 top ACC teams that I'm expecting to be in the top 6 at the end of the year, 3 of them you get at home. So it's a very big advantage for you. The biggest thing that I have to ask about NC State is, what does this defense look like? Is this team going to be as good as we think they are? Virginia has not beaten North Carolina State since 2018, okay? The last time that these two met, I think it might have been this past season, but I mean, you're talking about, yeah, it was last past season. Tight ball game. Virginia had a little bit one too many turnovers at the end of the day. Kind of hurt their chances of winning when it's all said and done. But CJ Bailey returns 3 of his starting 5 offensive line this past year. You have arguably one of your top receivers in Keenan Jackson. That returns as well. Keenan Jackson is an absolutely phenomenal football player. Guy that transferred in from North Texas, 28 catches, 281, and 2 scores. I'm expecting him to break out in a big way this year. I think this is finally the season where we see that. And honestly, we've seen the explosiveness that he brings when he steps out onto the football field. I think this is his time to shine. Teagan Anderson, Cameron Smith, and Spike Sowell's return on the offensive line. Yes, the loss of Jacarius Peak will obviously hurt you, and that's a big hole that leaves you at left tackle, but I think you can obviously fill that in, and I think you've done a decent job for the most part of doing that. Your top 3 DBs are back in Assad Brown Jr., Jackson Vick, and Ronnie Royal. In the secondary, lead what could be a much improved ACC defense in 2025. I thought for the most part, NC State had their moments where they're really they showed flashes of why they can be an elite team. But again, this is a very inconsistent defense. They finished 12th overall in total defense. This was a team that, 14th total in overall in total defense, 12th in scoring defense. But one of the biggest points of weaknesses with their passing defense, obviously this was a young team last year, but I think with that production that's returning, I think they're going to be much better. Bo Perbula on the opposite side for Virginia, is he going to be able to throw the football vertically down the field with the weapons that he has? And do you think that he is going to be as advertised, man? Is this team going to be better than what we thought they were when we first saw them in the preseason? Because everybody knows about how good he can be. 3 offensive line return for this year. Your top 5 defensive players are back in Fisher Kamak, which I think he can be at one of the best edge rushers in the SEC or in the ACC. Kamak's done a really good job. I'm expecting him to break out in a big way this year. You look at other guys like Jason Hammond and Cam Robinson that showed out in the ACC title game, but they struggled in tackling last year. That was a team that struggled to bring down guys like Nate Shepard when it mattered most. This was a top 3 defense in the ACC in passing defense this past year, number 3 overall in total defense. But man, did they struggle in big-time games. They struggled trying to hang on to guys like Nate Shepard in the ACC championship game when it mattered most. That Duke team just took it on to a whole nother level. They struggled getting lost in the secondary against Darian Mensah. He was able to pick them apart this past year. Can CJ Bailey replicate that same success that he had this past year against this same Virginia team? It is obviously going to be a different animal, knowing that he's going to have to go on the road at the end of the day. But listen, you also have to understand North Carolina State also lost one of their best running backs in Hollywood Smothers. How critical will it be for NC State to win this football game if you don't have a decent rushing attack? That's going to be the big question that has to get addressed. Is this team going to be as good as we think they are? They very well could. The running back room is going to obviously play a factor in this football game. High scoring affair. Almost 1,000 yards between the two teams this past season. I don't know if this is going to be the same. But I still believe that this is still going to be one of the better games at the end of the day. This Virginia offensive line is going to have a lot of things that he's got to do against Harvey Dyson, who ended up this past year coming from Tulane, 8 sacks and 11.5 tackles for loss. So does the home field advantage play a factor in it, knowing that this game was initially going to be in Brazil? Possibly. Very well. But again, I still think that with home field advantage in play, Bo Pribula, I'm expecting to play a massive role. I don't expect him to be what Chandler Morris was this past year. I do expect for him to be a balanced quarterback, though. I think that he's got the weapons around him. I think he's got a solid offensive line that surrounds him. I think that this Virginia offensive line is able to hold up just long enough with what North Carolina State brings to the table. Give me the Cavaliers at the end of the day to pull off a victory. That's going to do it for us here today, guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, posting a video or posting a short. And as always, stay blessed and no stress. Y'all have a good day.